Oh, there we go. Welcome to FBB Forum. I am very pleased to welcome the stunning IFBB Women's Physique Pro, Emily Schubert. Emily lives in Pittsburgh and has competed as a pro, started as a pro at the Junior USA back in 2018 and competed in the Olympia in 2021. And after taking 2022 off last year to grow, she's coming back to stage this year, and I'm really excited about that. But welcome, Emily. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to, talk about my experience and my competition so far, and to get the fans to get to know me a little bit more.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been a big fan of yours for several years, and you really always look remarkable on stage. So I'm excited about what you'll bring to the stage this year. I think it's great.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely super anxious to get back up there.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, especially after a year off. I think that's great. So I'm going to start with just questions about how you got started in bodybuilding. And I was wondering, did you have an athletic or sports background before you started in bodybuilding?
Yes, I've actually been active my entire life. My mom put my sister and I in dance classes when we were really, really young. So that was my kind of physical activity growing up. It taught me, practicing. It taught me discipline. Once I got older, I wanted to be included into school sports because you want to make friends. So I got into track and field, and unfortunately, between dance and gymnastics and track, I had to make a choice because I can't be in three places at once.
Yeah.
So when I kind of put more focus on the athletic sides of track and field, and let gymnastics go. I still did dance because it was one day a week in the evenings. I had a lot of friends there, and I didn't really want to let that go. It was kind of fun for me. I was just naturally good at it, and it was a way of, stress relief and exercise, and I still enjoyed it. But I got into track and field in high school, or middle school and high school, and just loved it. I loved the grittiness of it, the more challenging side of it. I got involved in pole vaulting and actually got to meet the coaches at Slippery Rock. That's where I went to school. I actually did track and field there. It was awesome to experience it at the D2 level. We have 6 a.m. practices and community work we had to do and study sessions we had to do. So it really taught me, like, I thought I knew what discipline was, but going through that program, it really, they made sure you were not only the best athlete you could be, but the best student you could be as well. Okay. So we learned how to manage our time. We learned how to set goals. We learned how to, just be a performance-based human being, not only on the field, but also in the classroom too.
That's great.
Yeah, I did that. My junior year, I actually injured myself. I sprained my ankle pretty badly. So it took me like 6 months to kind of recover from that and rehab back. And unfortunately, by that time, a lot of my friends who were older than me had left. But I still wanted to be competitive with something. And fortunately, Slippery Rock had a bodybuilding club. And that was where I was first exposed to the world of bodybuilding. And it was very minuscule. It was just a club at school. It wasn't sanctioned. It was just a show they had at the end of the year to kind of feature everyone. But that gave me the chance to be up on stage, to wear suits, to try to do the posing because I wasn't, I didn't know what I was doing at that point. But it got me interested. And once I graduated and moved back home, I got my first coach, did my first NPC shows, and kind of went from there.
That's great. You probably, I was imagine you built some muscle in track and field, didn't you? Because a lot of the track and field competitors have some muscle showing.
Yeah. I got into the weight room in high school. My coaches were really great at kind of teaching us the basics and do things properly and safely. And it was awesome. I was actually really close to my track coaches, and we did extra practices. We did voluntary practices. I was always doing stuff extra to be better and to show my interest in learning. And that carried over into college. Lifting became a lot more of the program in college. We had fantastic coaches that knew what they were doing and how to program and how to go about hypertrophy and explosiveness. With track, unlike bodybuilding, we had to learn how to move quickly and efficiently. So there was a lot more Olympic lifting style in that training that I was doing back then. But it got me in the weight room. It got me around, the barbells and the free weights and the dumbbells, and it got me interested and liking that. So it just became second nature to me.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. You went from Olympic training to Olympia training. Uh-huh.
Yeah, in a roundabout way.
That's very cool. I was curious, like, who convinced you to do your first contest when you first got started in bodybuilding, or was that kind of your decision?
I was spending a lot of time in the gym at the rec center up at Slippery Rock, and one of my fellow track teammates, he said, "You know what, Shub, you're spending so much time in the gym, might as well get paid for it," because that show at the end of the year, they had like a prize money. It was like $100 to whoever placed first. And at the time in college, you're like, "Whoa, that's a decent chunk of change," and I can get paid for doing what I like to do. So it was more so a couple friends of mine that kind of pushed me towards doing it. I didn't have a coach. I kind of winged it. As far as nutrition goes, I botched everything I did. But you gotta learn and experience before you can really succeed at anything. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's really cool that you did it in college. I was thinking, I saw University of Pennsylvania had some bodybuilding contests, and they posted them on YouTube. And I don't know if they still do, but I thought that was kind of neat that at the university, they had their own contest.
Yeah, I think especially now with bodybuilding becoming a little bit more mainstream, I would say, social media is really helping it to get it exposed to the younger kids earlier. So I think as far as like colleges go, I think it's going to become more and more popular to have like a bodybuilding club or team or anything in that sort of aspect, which is cool. It gets everyone exposed, hopefully, to doing things properly and safely, rather than just kind of like, eyeballing it in the dark. So I'm all for it. I think it's a great thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. I was curious, like, when did you first have your first kind of aha, I belong here in the gym kind of moment? Because I think that a lot of people feel intimidated by gyms, and now this January, people are going to the gym maybe for the first time. And but when did you kind of feel that moment?
Yeah. I would say I was never uncomfortable in the gym. I was never intimidated. I think getting in there as young as I was, in 7th and 8th grade, it just, I was so used to it. But I think when I realized that, like, hey, I could be good at this, was when I moved back home. My first job out of college was actually selling personal training at LA Fitness. Okay. And so I was spending all day at the gym. We had split shifts, so I would work in the morning and then work out in the afternoon and then work at night. So I was literally at the gym all day long. And that's when I really, really got into it. And it became, my everyday lifestyle. So that was when I really realized, like, I could potentially do something with this. I think when I switched coaches and got on with Derek with Team Loud, his experience and knowledge by far surpassed who I was working with before. And with his guidance and with his, coaching me and mentoring me, that's when I realized, like, we could do something with this. So I would say it was probably my first year with Derek it was the end of 2017, 2018.
Okay, terrific. Yeah, he's a great coach. He's not just you, but several other great competitors. So
yeah, there's not enough good things you can say about him.
Yeah, no, he is. He's a really good guy, and that's good that you started working with him too. I was curious, like, when you first started, was it tough for you to kind of get up on stage in a bikini for the first time? And I think it might be kind of a little nerve-wracking. And Do you ever still feel nervous these days when you get up on stage?
Oh yeah. Not as much. I think coming into your own and accepting your body at every phase of the process really helps with stage presence.
Yeah.
When I first started as a competitor, you're still self-conscious and, getting up in a bikini on stage in front of a bunch of people and trying to pose in heel. I started figure, so I was in heels. So it was very intimidating. But I think the more and more you do it and the more you mature as yourself and learn who you are, and you're becoming more comfortable in your own skin,
Mm-hmm.
I think my nerves start to decrease. And now by the time it becomes show day, I'm not so much nervous as more as excited. Because once you kind of gain that confidence in yourself, I think you get up on stage and say like, hey, look at me, this is my time to shine, versus, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? Am I going to look okay? So now it's more so fun than nerve-wracking.
That's great. Yeah. It's like you put in all that work, and to get to show the work that you put in on stage that's pretty tremendous, I think. And yeah, I bet it's really exciting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Stage day is honestly, it's the best part of the process. It's like 0.08% of the whole thing, but it's the best part of it.
Yeah, I bet. That's great. I've heard that from other ladies too. So my next few questions are about prep, and I was curious, what is the toughest aspect of competition prep for you?
Oh, 1,000%, it's staying out of my own head. So
Yeah.
I've realized I'm my own worst enemy. Being so perfection based and wanting to be my best, I tend to overanalyze and think the worst in some situations. And I think too, like the more you learn about the process, the more analytical you become, because you know what's supposed to be happening. And if you're not seeing it with your own eyes, you start to get, paranoid and start to worry. And that's when things kind of go downhill. When your cortisol goes up and your body is kind of in that fight or flight, mechanism. So my biggest challenge is just staying calm and staying confident through the whole process, day to day. You can ask Derek that. It's a constant battle with me. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. I think it's just part of my personality.
Yeah.
But it's part of being self-aware. And once you're, aware of the situation, you can kind of catch yourself when you're doing it and say, hey, take a step back. You're doing fine. Wait until tomorrow. I'm sure things will get better. So it's learning that prep is day to day and that your body is constantly changing and shifting and adapting.
Yeah, it's something I've mentioned to a few of the muscle ladies about. You might need like a chill coach, like to help you chill and just and kind of get perspective too, that you still are just looking amazing. But yeah, I understand though that and getting in your own head and the process can be really tough sometimes.
Yeah, and definitely getting to, the level that I'm trying to be at, working my way up the pro ranks.
Yeah.
Everyone looks good and everyone is on their game. So anytime you feel like you're not on your game, you start to panic and freak out because you put so much time and effort into it.
Yeah.
But I think understanding that like this sport is not necessarily linear, and sometimes you have to take a step back in order to take two forward. So understanding that in the process definitely helps with the mindset.
That's great. Yeah. What about in terms of having the year off? Has that really helped you, or has that got you more in your head, would you say?
Yeah, it was needed. Since I started competing way back in college in 2015, I never took a year off. I was always prepping or dieting down for a competition every year.
Yeah.
And we were actually supposed to take 2021 off, but I fortunately ended up winning that show at the end of 2020, and that qualified me. And it wasn't like we were gonna turn down that opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was definitely needed. I think in the long run, it was really good for my body, not only to get a break, but not to have the drastic up and downs. because prepping and dieting is very hard on your body. And the more you do it and the longer you do it, it definitely takes, a toll on your system. So to take the year off, it really wasn't what I wanted to do, because we love stage. That's what we do it for.
Yeah.
I think in the long run, as far as my body being responsive and at, what we need it to do, I think it was a good decision.
That's great. Yeah, I think so. And I was thinking about Sherry Priami, who also works with Derek, and she took 2021 off, but I think she came back with just a lot of improvement, last year in 2022. So I do think the year off can really help you in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think for Sherry, at least, I think it opened the door to better opportunities for her. Seeing her in women's bodybuilding, that's definitely the place she belongs. So I think that year definitely changed the trajectory of her career for the better. So as far as other competitors out there, when being told to take time off, you might think, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Like I can't do what I love. But in the long run, it's probably going to be good for you. This sport is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And a lot of the times competitors burn out when they try to do too much back to back to back. And I think in the industry, I think a lot of competitors are being pressured to compete more often than not.
Yeah.
And that's on no one's, fault, I would say. But as far as with the social media going, it definitely, people get more attention when you're competing. So I think that makes people want to compete more and more. We have to remember, this sport takes time. It takes years. So I would encourage everyone out there to really look at yourself and what your body's doing. And if it's not responding, then it's time to take a break.
Yeah, that's good advice. I really like that. I agree with you on that. I was curious, like when you're in prep, and what food item kind of lingers in your head waiting for the prep to end? Because I personally think that bodybuilding diets would be very tough to contend with because of the sameness and not getting to eat some really good stuff sometimes,
Yeah, definitely. Man, I would say for me, at least, it's not so much necessarily like food item, but it's more like textures. So when we're like deep in prep, a lot of the times we're just eating proteins and vegetables and maybe a little bit of carbs here and there. But for me, it's I want the texture of something like creamy or chewy, or I always crave like a bread texture. So that's why I love English muffins so much. But I would say my biggest craving is peanut butter or like almond butters. So any like nut butter is my jam.
Oh yeah, those are awesome too. And you can't really when you're
and I get to have it here and there, but when prep starts, I switch over to like almonds, because having the almond butter in my house is too much of a temptation. So it's actually like a little trick of myself to just switch over. That way I'm not, tempted or trying to dig into the jar for any extra. So
sure, I understand that. I was curious. Do you have well, you mentioned your prep coach was Derek. I was curious, and his last name is Natcher. But what advice can you give to aspiring pros who are seeking a good coach?
Oh, as far as coaching goes, you want someone who's experienced and has the knowledge and is constantly learning. But you also want someone who you're able to click personality wise, because communication is key. If it's someone that you're not able to let them in on what's going on, like I know Derek and I have had a lot of conversations, not only about bodybuilding, but about stuff that's going on in my personal life, because it does affect, and it does, take a toll on you through this whole process. So you want to find someone who is genuine, who wants the best for you. Obviously, we all want to win. We all want to do well on stage. But at the end of the day, there is life after bodybuilding. So if you make wrong moves, it can really lead you down some tough roads for the future. So I like that Derek has health as one of his #1 priorities, always making sure that we're making smart decisions for not only right now, but 20, 30, 40 years down the road. We don't want long-term lasting effects. So I like that about him. That was one of the key components of me choosing Derek as a coach.
And I've heard that from his other clients too. Yeah, I think he is really attuned to that, which is good. Yeah. And
Especially with the way the sport is progressing. Each year the level of competition is getting higher and higher. Everyone's getting bigger. Everyone's getting harder. So naturally, that takes a little bit more of certain things in the protocols. So I think a lot of the coaches out there are doing things excessively. So with Derek, we're only using what is necessary to get the look that we're trying to achieve. And he's never really pushing the envelope to a point where it's dangerous at all, which I like.
That's really good. No, I think that's cool. And I think Sherry had mentioned something like that about him too, which is great. And I was curious, do you have a posing coach? Because I think your posing skills are great, and you mentioned you have a dance background, so I think that's really helped too.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't. I do most of my posing myself with my little camera, and a lot of it is trial and error. I take a lot of pictures, a lot of videos, trying different things out, seeing what works, what doesn't. I do a lot of different cues. So I might try a certain pose one way, and then I might try it a different way, and then a third way, and then a fourth way, and I'll go back and see which one looks the best to me. I've had a lot of help from Gary Udit over the past couple of years, being in Pittsburgh. Yeah, being in Pittsburgh, he's local here, so it's always nice to reach out to him, and he's always open to help me. We'll meet for a posing session before the season gets underway. So he's been a great resource to use. And then other than that, just bouncing ideas off of Derek. He's also been one to kind of ask, what do you think? Do you like this one or this one better? But he kind of lets me take the reins on that. So yeah, posing's kind of in-house. I do it pretty much all myself.
That's great. Yeah, I think you're really graceful on stage, and you can tell that you have a dance background. So yeah, you look really good up on stage.
Yeah, I think it reads on stage when certain stylistic choices are made. As far as the women's physique division, I think gracefulness, femininity, like a certain flow is very important. So I think my dance and gymnastics background definitely helps me in the long run.
I agree with you, definitely. Yeah, your flow is great on stage, I think. Yeah. And some ladies don't really have that. So I think that's a competitive advantage that you've got.
Yeah, for sure. And it's fun for me. I think definitely when you don't enjoy the posing side of it, it's harder to get better and to find your stylistic choices. So for me, at least, it's fun for me to practice it and to come up with new ideas and different routines. And so it's definitely a side of the sport that not everyone likes. So it gets neglected by a lot.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's what makes you stand out, especially at the pro level. So it's an area that you cannot put aside to the last minute.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, no, totally agree. I think it's really important to practice and get it right before you go on stage. So my next few questions are about competing, and I was curious, when do you think we can expect you to see you on stage again this year? Because I'm excited to see how you're going to look, your new package for 2023.
Yeah, so we are underway. We're aiming for like spring, summertime. So not 100% sure on which show 100% yet. But as far as things are going, I'm itching to get rolling. Derek's the one that's like, hold on, we're good. It's coming. So he knows what he's doing. He knows more than I do. So I kind of just roll with the punches and do as I'm told. I know he has like the master game plan in his mind. A lot of the times he doesn't tell me so that I don't worry about it.
Okay. Yeah.
It keeps me calmer. But yeah, we're aiming for I would say late spring, early summer.
That's terrific. Yeah, really excited to see you on stage this year. So, so 2021 was your first Olympia, wasn't it? I bet it was really thrilling to be on the O stage. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so it was kind of bittersweet for me. I had pretty much an awesome prep up until about a month out. I was doing a leg workout and ended up tweaking my knee. I got in with Dr. Prisk, who is an orthopedic surgeon in the Pittsburgh area. He's awesome.
Hmm.
He got me in quick. We got scans done. We got the what was it? Like a not a scan of it. What is it called? Ultrasound. So he was
Oh,
able to go in and see what was going on in there. I actually had a tear starting in my meniscus.
oh,
So we did a cortisone shot there, which took, you know, in the roundabout ways, it took about 2 weeks to really get back into somewhat training of the lower body.
yeah,
And you can imagine at a month out, that's when you really start to push and kind of put the final touches on everything.
yeah.
So it was very hard to bring the package I really wanted to bring. Uh,
Okay, I understand. Yeah,
yeah, so we were able to get up there. We brought about 80% of what I would have been capable of in the time being. But
hmm,
it was an amazing experience. It was awesome to be in the city in the venue with pretty much everyone in the sport. I remember meeting Jay Cutler. I met Sean Roden. Just walking around the lobby, it was awesome to just be around these people that you know are inspired by and motivated by. And at the end of the day, everyone kind of comes together, and it's a really community feel. We all do this, and we all aim for the same things. And at
yeah,
the end of the day, we have more in common than we don't. So I think as far as like the experience goes, it's unreal. You
yeah.
can you can see why everyone wants to get to that stage and to that weekend, because to be included in pretty much the Super Bowl of bodybuilding, there's nothing like it. It's like Christmas morning. It's a very cool feeling to be on that stage.
That's great. That's 2021 was the first time I had attended Olympia because it was in Orlando and I live in Tampa. But I was just so impressed with the production and just everything they put together was very impressive. And the meet and greet was great. And yeah, I was really impressed. So I'm excited about it coming back to Orlando this year. So, and I hope that
Yeah, I think
you're
the Vegas experience would be cool. Just because it's Vegas,
Mhm.
it's the pretty much tourist capital of the country.
Yeah,
But I am a big fan of Florida. I like the weather down there. I've always had a good experience traveling down there. There's no time change, which is awesome. And I think it definitely, as far as the past couple of years, it's become like the mecca of bodybuilding. A lot of competitors have moved down there. So I
yeah,
think having it back in Orlando next year is definitely an awesome opportunity.
yeah. I'm excited about it. Yeah, definitely. I got to get my tickets.
Yeah. Get them
So,
quick because they'll go fast.
and I predict that you'll be competing there again. I don't want to jinx you, but I
Man, I
think
hope so. I hope so. That's the goal. So we'll see. We'll see what I can manage.
that's awesome. um, uh, we talked a little bit about this next question about taking the year off to grow and make improvements. And how I just curious, how has the year gone for you? Did you get the results that you wanted from taking the year off?
Yeah. It was definitely uh a different year. For me, I enjoy the prep process.
Hmm.
I think it's I the guy I go to for tissue work, he always says that I'm just good at suffering. That's just I'm good at it. So I think prep has always been my kind of like sweet spot. So to
Yeah.
be in a bulking phase for an entire year, and that was the longest off season I've ever taken.
Hmm.
So it was a mental challenge at first to kind of be okay with seeing yourself softer for a
Hmm.
longer and extended amount of time.
Yeah.
Uh, it was awesome getting to eat because that was the highest my food intake has ever been
Really.
by a long shot.
Yeah.
Um, So it's definitely made getting back into prep harder because you're so used to eating so much food, and you get used to it, you know, for months and months and months.
Sure.
So to all of a sudden have food taken away, you're like, wait, hold up, what? Um,
I
but
understand.
it was definitely an awesome experience. Like looking back at myself in January, February, March to where I was in like November.
Hmm.
You know, you see yourself all the time, so it's like, oh, I'm not really growing. I don't see any change. But then you take the pictures from both of them and you look at the back to back, and you're like, holy crap! Like I really did make, you know, big change within a year.
Hmm. Yeah.
So it was a cool experience. It was a side of bodybuilding that I think I needed to do in order to learn to love that side of it. Because I
Yeah.
think off
Sure.
season was always something I did because we had to, but I was constantly like, when are we back in prep again?
Yeah.
Uh,
I
so it was
understand.
nice to kind of sit down and give myself a second to actually do bodybuilding because that's what it is. You want to eat and you want to train hard, and that's what you do to add tissue to your body. It's not the dieting, it's not the prepping part of it that creates your body. It's, you know, the monotony and the boring side of just eating and sleeping and training.
I think from a fan perspective, I think that you've definitely made a lot of improvements in terms of like your lats and your legs and such. You look really great.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I ran out of clothes, to be honest with you.
Really?
My wardrobe really got small this year, so I had to. And it's hard too because you don't want to go out and buy a bunch of new clothes because you're not going to fit into them in a couple months. So
That's,
it's constantly a challenge of what am I going to wear?
yeah, you need stretchy stuff, I imagine.
Oh, for sure, sweats and spandex all day.
Um, I was curious in terms of what feedback from judges were you getting like in 2021 about where to improve your physique?
So I actually got to speak to the head judge of the last show I did, which was the Atlantic Coast down in Florida.
Yeah.
I ran into him the next day in the hotel, so I was able to talk to him face to face. And he actually took a good like 20 minutes to talk to me and give me some feedback.
Good.
And he basically said, you know what you're doing is perfect. Your stage presence, your conditioning was one of the best up there.
Yeah.
Your posing was on point. He said, you know, it's just time. And he said, a lot of these women have been doing it a lot longer than you, and it shows. So
Mm,
he said to keep doing what I'm doing, just do it more and do it longer. So
good.
that's, you know, hopefully what we did. We took some time off, added you know, some tissue to my body. And hopefully when we come back with the same conditioning that I've kind of become known for,
Yeah,
hopefully it becomes a little bit more of a competitive package. So
that's terrific. Yeah, your conditioning is great, and it's great that you got that feedback. I think that's really helpful for competitors.
100%. I think a lot of the times competitors will email judges for feedback, and that can become a little bit overwhelming for a lot of the people that work on that side of things.
Yeah.
I have a couple friends that actually work as judges, and you know, getting all of those emails, it's hard to not only give you a good response on time, but also to remember because everything kind of, you
Yeah.
know, it blends together. There's so many people out there, and they all look good, and
Hmm.
so to actually get his feedback the day after the show was definitely an awesome experience.
Yeah, especially in person like that. Yeah, versus email. Yeah, you can get immediate feedback. That's really good.
Yeah, because then it becomes not only like, hey, what can I improve on? And it's a one way kind of response. But here I was able to ask questions or, you know,
Mhm.
what do you think about this? Or what would you suggest for that? So it was definitely more of a conversation rather than just a feedback response.
That's terrific. I think that's really good. Um, I was curious, what is your favorite muscle group, you know, in terms of your own body, and which muscle group do you think needs the most improvements? And I think you had the best abs in the biz. I always thought that.
Thank you, thank you. Oh man, I get asked this all the time, and it it constantly changes as far as like what my favorite muscle group to train or what looks best on me.
Hmm.
Naturally, I get a lot of comments about my legs, so that's an area where, you know, I kind of feel a little bit confident about. But then you'll hear me saying, oh, my legs are small, they're shrinking, they're this. So I think as far as to be in this sport, you almost have to be, I wouldn't say negative because you don't want to be negative, but like if you were to ask me, what's your best muscle group? I'd say, maybe this or that, but like even then I could still improve on it because you can. So I would say the area where I'm most confident would be my legs, naturally. But an area where I kind of want to improve more upon would be my back.
Okay.
I would say back density, so like the thickness of it, and then delts and arms, because that obviously you can always improve upon that.
Yeah, definitely. That's cool. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, your legs are amazing, and yeah, I feel like you've put on some size on your legs too. So, and to have them on stage condition, I think you're gonna really wow the judges there. So, yeah.
I hope so, man. I hope so.
My next few questions are just kind of miscellaneous. And one thing we had talked about before we started, I know you have a Her Biceps Cam and OnlyFans page, and it's a way for your fans to support you and help you with your competition journey. But I was wondering, could you talk a little bit about that and your experience with the fans on those sites?
Yeah, I think those sites in general, obviously for us competitors, with the economy the way it is, bodybuilding it's expensive. So those sites are an awesome way for us competitors to not only hopefully help us compete and keep doing what we love doing, but to also kind of get exposure with the fan base. So unlike Instagram, where it's kind of like a one-way street, we're posting things and fans are able to see it and comment and whatnot. But at least with these websites, with Her Biceps and with OnlyFans, I'm able to kind of give a little bit more personal interaction with fans. I like the aspect of it that not only am I showing obviously what I work on, which would be my body, and flexing and showing different posing and sides of that. But I'm also able to speak with them. And a lot of the times they just want to know what I do on a daily basis, or asking me, what's training like, or what are you eating, or stuff like that, where I think as far as women's physique and bodybuilding goes, as competitors, we don't really get the same exposure on different platforms.
Yeah, sure.
I know on YouTube, there's not many women's physique or bodybuilder women with channels.
That's true.
There's very few. I think Brooke is one of the only few that do have anything on there. It's definitely a cool avenue to kind of create a closer connection with the fan base.
That's terrific. Yeah, the fan. I think your fan base has really grown in the last few years too. And one thing, I'm going to make sure to include the links to those two sites at the bottom or in the description of this when we post to YouTube too, so that fans can check you out.
Yeah, especially now with my season kind of starting up, things get a little bit more exciting. With off season, it's a slower process. With prep going on, I think things become a little bit more exciting, and there's definitely more to document. So definitely both of those platforms are going to get more and more kind of content from me in these next coming months.
That's terrific. Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep posted on that. And thank you. So I was wondering, if you were in a leadership position, what would you do to improve the sport of bodybuilding, and how would you make the sport better?
That's a good question. It's only been 4 or 5 years that I've been doing this and in the bodybuilding world. And the introduction of social media has definitely changed as far as the amount of exposure the sport gets. In the gym these days, you see a bunch of young kids with their tripods, and they're filming things and creating content, and that's awesome. I love that bodybuilding is getting more and more attention. I wish that women we're a little bit more interested in the muscle side of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, when I started in bodybuilding, I always wanted to be big and muscular, and that was what bodybuilding was to me. And I think
Yeah.
bodybuilding and physique are the roots of the sport.
Mm-hmm. I
You know,
agree.
I love that they introduced bikini and wellness and figure, of course. You know, they're all impressive in their own ways.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, at least, it's always been muscle.
Yeah.
You know, in my mind, bodybuilding is how can I create the most eye-catching, the most crazy physique, and that's just what is impressive to me. So if I were to be able to, you know, have a leadership role in any way, I think I would want to encourage more young girls and women to get involved into the side of physique and bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And learning to love training hard and heavy, and you know, getting that self-satisfaction from doing things that you think you couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that, you know, the training or anything by any means of athletes in other divisions is not hard in any way. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a world where a lot of like superstitions and a lot of I think there's negative connotation about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and I think if done correctly, you know, women can build muscle and still be pretty and attractive and friendly. So I think there's a lot of like stigmas that need to be kind of shut down in order to grow these two divisions. And
Sure.
that's just going to be a matter of time, and hopefully, you know, different platforms like this, like yourself, what you're doing, gets
Mm-hmm.
us more and more exposure, and gets us known and our personalities known a little bit better in order to kind of encourage the growth of our divisions.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's good info. And I just from a fan perspective, I prefer physique and bodybuilding because you get the flex. You know, like with the other divisions, you don't really get to see the flex. You don't get to see the work as much, in my opinion. So yeah, no, I think that's a great um, to want to get more young women involved in physique and bodybuilding. And I would like to see, you know, sometimes the NPC shows they have the lower level shows don't even hardly have any competitors in those divisions. So yeah, I'd love to see more women get involved in those divisions and have a little bit more population within those, you know, when they're at the show instead of one or two competitors or zero competitors, you know.
Yeah, and shout out to, you know, Wings of Strength, what they've done in the past couple years in order to kind of rebuild women's bodybuilding
Yeah.
is awesome. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a great organization for the sport. The fact that they have, you know, the show in Arizona, the Rising Phoenix, which is basically an all women's show, which is
Mm-hmm.
unreal. It's awesome that we have that.
Yeah.
And definitely what they've done to get women's bodybuilding back on the Olympia stage too. So it's definitely making strides in the right direction.
Yeah.
I think it's become an issue that has been acknowledged and known, and I think there's definitely things in the process, in the works, that are hopefully going to help improve it.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree with you on that. And yeah, I agree with Wings of Strength, and Jake Wood has really made a big impact, I think. I really like him and what he's done. Um, so I was curious, what's it like to live in Pittsburgh, which is kind of like a brain center of pro bodybuilding, because you got Gary Udid and the Manions there, and that's where IFBB Pro League and NPC are headquartered there. So I think that just from a competitor standpoint, is it kind of cool to be like right there in the midst of bodybuilding central?
Yeah, it's you know, for me, I'm a huge introvert, and I'm slowly getting better at it. But there's a bunch of opportunities as far as like networking goes.
Mm-hmm.
So in Pittsburgh, we have a bunch of shows. We have the Pittsburgh in May, then North Americans in the summer, usually at the end of summer. They just added that Masters Championships, which I went to this year. It was unreal competition. Like the level of skill and showing that these masters competitors brought out was unreal. Very impressive. And then of course on the local level, we have a bunch of regional shows too. So we definitely have a ton of opportunities, not only to, you know, see other bodybuilders from Pittsburgh, but now we have people coming into Pittsburgh that are also involved in bodybuilding that we get to meet or talk. Or like this past summer, I worked for my suit maker, Rebecca Biddle, for BB Custom Suits. She had a booth at the NA weekend, North American weekend. So it was awesome to have a couple competitors from different states come up to me and say, you know, hey, I've been following you. I'd love to talk to you. Can I ask you a couple questions? So that was really, really cool to be exposed to that. So I would say, as far as being in a city where not only is there one, but like multiple big shows that bring in a lot of people, it's definitely, it's cool to be local and to have those opportunities.
That's great. Yeah, I bet it's kind of neat to be there in Pittsburgh. And you had mentioned Florida is kind of a mecca of bodybuilding, but for just like a metropolitan region, I think Pittsburgh is probably the biggest. It's, you know, and which is cool. I mean, but it's not always sunshiny and warm there.
No, it's definitely like today is pretty much overcast all day. It's been rainy the past couple days, cold. Our temperature can shift drastically from day to day. So it's definitely, it's not my favorite place to live weather-wise, but it's an awesome kind of, you know, place to be for bodybuilding, at least.
I bet. I think it is, definitely. One thing we were talking a little bit about social media and the impact on bodybuilding, but I was wondering, what do you think about how can we get these female bodybuilding contests back on TV again? And I was just thinking back in the 80s and 90s, ESPN and NBC and Fox Sports all showed the shows, and I think exposed a lot of people who had never seen shows before. And but we don't really have that on the cable channels these days. But I'm just curious, what do you think about how we can get those back again, or do you think it would help, you know, kind of widen the awareness of bodybuilding?
Yeah, I think social media has helped a lot. I mean, look at it now, the amount of pay-per-view as far as shows go. You know, just a couple of years ago, there weren't, you know, if you wanted to see the Savannah Pro, you would have to go to Savannah to watch it. And now that the promoters are offering these pay-per-views per show, I think that's a great start to it. At least it kind of gets people watching more and more attention on these shows. Even, you know, in 2019, when I did my first pro season, it was like no one really cared what happened at these shows, you know, unless you were going on to NPC News Online and checking the pictures after it happened. But it was like these shows would happen and come and go, and it really wouldn't do anything as far as like the news of bodybuilding goes. So I definitely think the pay-per-views that they've been introducing now has been helping. I mean, to get it back on ESPN, I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Unfortunately, I think that might be like a financial issue, which I don't know how much of a pull us competitors have on that. I would love if it happened. I think I mean, I'm biased, but I think bodybuilding is one of the most difficult sports out there. And I would love if, you know, it got the recognition that, like, say, football or NHL or baseball gets. So I think it can happen. I think it's a possible thing, but who knows when it's going to happen.
Yeah, I would love to see it back again, and because there's so many networks, like ESPN's fragmented into 5 or 6 different networks or more than that, and I bet they show cornhole, you know, like it's kind of rather see
it's like these weird sports that you're just like, what is that? And I mean, I don't know why the bodybuilding doesn't get the kind of attention that it should get, especially now with it becoming more and more popular.
Yeah.
You would think that these channels would want to pick up on that and make a killing, but yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah. I hope it would come back to TV eventually, and maybe somebody like The Rock, or Dave Bautista or somebody can get, just some more attention or even sponsor or to get it on TV. But I don't know. We'll see.
I agree. I'm with you. We'll start a petition.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've got to pressure ESPN.
Yeah.
So my last question is just easy. Is there anything that I should have asked you that I neglected to ask?
I don't think. I think we went over a lot. Um, I mean, just to point out again, if there's women out there that watch this and are kind of nervous about that want to build muscle and are scared about the stereotypes or the stigmas about it, there's gonna be haters out there no matter what you do in life.
Yeah,
But if you have a passion for something, if you want to experience it and you have that drive to get better, it's something you look forward to every day. You wake up and let's do this, let's get it. I think I encourage women to do that. There's a ton of girls out there that you're able to reach out to ask for advice on anything. We've created kind of like a sisterhood in the physique and the bodybuilding divisions, because we do get a lot of flack from the general public. It's the manly comments or just a lot of derogatory things.
yeah, I understand. It's nice
Yeah. So
you can block those haters on Instagram and stuff at least, not, but it's probably,
yeah, yeah. But just understand that, like, you shouldn't allow other people to stop you from doing something you want to do. Would
yeah,
be best kind of advice.
that's great. That's great advice. And I think that you're a good role model, I think, for that too. And so I was curious, would you mind doing like a quick flex for me?
Yeah. Do that. I'm on a rest day, so it's no pump and low food. So
Oh, you
deal
look
with me here.
awesome. Oh, very cool. Wow, you look great. Yeah, your lats really have grown, I think. You look awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. And as I mentioned, I'll include some links in the description below, and your Instagram and Derek's too, in case the folks want to follow you. But I really appreciate it, and I'll try to get this posted up relatively soon. But thanks again, Emily.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Thanks for your time and for the opportunity to be on your show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll definitely get it posted soon. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you.